Okay, well, welcome to the Poetry Box Live. So let's get started with our first reader, Barbara Meier, author of Sylvan Grove. Barbara Meier traded the Midwest ocean of wheat for the Pacific Northwest in 1979. She married, had babies, and pretty much gave up on her dreams of acting and writing. 33 years later, she found herself alone, staring at the Pacific Ocean and writing poems again. She still wants to try to get back to the stage. Last year, she retired from teaching kindergarten and moved to Colorado to spend time with her mom. And wouldn't you know it, she was just in time for the COVID-19 quarantine. Please welcome Barbara Meier.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Shawn, for having me on. My book is not only about my childhood in Kansas, but it's also about going back to Kansas and Southwestern in Winfield 40 years later. So there's a lot of mixed emotions in this book. So it's appropriate that the first one I'm reading, I wrote in 1979 when I was a senior at Southwestern College in Winfield, Kansas. And my advisor was Dr. Dan Daniels, and this one's for him. Sylvan Grove. The temporal eternity, stones lie in their beds of grass. The grass slowly bends west, gray marble heads, the trees twisted where storms sought shelter. The prairie ascends, slowly bends up the slopes, transfixed at the headstones. A silent prayer of the prairie, so temporal, it's nothing else but eternity, a life worth living. So, growing up on the farm outside of Sylvan Grove, my mom was a nurse and she worked in the nearby town of Lincoln. So, Dad, who was a farmer who was raising wheat and cattle and all that, was in charge of us girls, and he gave us some very important jobs. One of them was when he was hauling silage, he would drop us off at the gate and it would be open, and our job was to keep those cows from getting out. So, this is called the Garden of Eden. The Garden to Eden is really only barbed wire fencing strung between crook-necked sticks, hinged to rust-streaked limestone posts bleeding on the prairie. A gate to keep the pasture in place for the cows and the children. To play among the devil's claw, sucking the dirt from the roots of the wild onions with purple flowers, or play hide and seek with the horny toads and the box turtles. At its tightest, saggy trousers, tattered shirts, the latch, a belt of baling wire, slick in my sweaty palms. Open, it flops in a hopscotch booby trap with barbs of steel poking the ground. We were sentinels of silage, hauled in a dying farmer's Ford pickup. Prairie angels with sunflower swords, keeping out all that is bad, escaping the wrath of rattlesnakes, fire ants, and sandburrs. The Garden of Eden before the fall. So my father died very young, I think, now that I look back, at 42. And he had amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or also called Lou Gehrig's disease. And at that time, they don't know why they got it. There was no cure for it. Death was inevitable. So this poem's for him. The sunshine of beer. There is sunshine in the taste of beer, of a June wheat day, blonde grain kissing the cerulean blue sky, and 103 temperature baking the green enamel of a John Deere 55H combine. It is the smell of bread brewing on the prairie wind. The farmer, cabless with his Coors, babysitting his girls in the bin of the combine, perched above the churning gears. There were so many ways to die that day. In the jaw of the combine, sliding on the cracked vinyl seats without a seatbelt, riding the tipping truck, dumping wheat at the grain elevator, hoping the elevator man would give us a stick of gum. OSHA never knew, and KCSL never cared about us sipping the last swallow of Daddy's beer. They never knew it was the farmer who died. Was it the pink mercury-treated wheat in the old JD seed drill? The Barbon carbine for the wild oats? Or was it the visit to Sasebo, Japan, swabbing the deck of radiation? Death blooms from the seeds drilled into the ground so long ago. We are harvested by the deed done wrong, the accidents unknown, the ignorance of greed. We become the brewed amber ale, drunk down. Okay, so this next one's dedicated to my little sister Jan because she shared the same experience with me. My grandfather had a stroke and he was in Hays, Kansas at Hadley Hospital. We were in Salina. It was about a 3-hour drive, seemed to take forever. And then once we got there, there was nothing to do until we found out the acoustics of the basement in the hospital. This is based on one of my favorite hymns, Jerusalem the Golden. Jerusalem upon the plain. The radiancy is of wheat fields fed to the craw of a John Deere combine. The green against the gold honeyed fields and milky blue skies. The hills outside my car windows roll westward, flattening to shorn stubbled fields and shaggy carpets of blue-stemmed buffalo and switchgrass. The tedium of our wheels on Interstate 70. Sylvan Grove, Ellsworth, Russell, Victoria, Hayes. My eyes sink, fade to my cheek, resting against the hot glass. I contemplate. What bliss can be found in the plainness of the high prairies? What pastures of the sick shine with a glorious sheen? The halls of Zion in the basement of Hadley Hospital, where martyrs sleep in hospital beds, and sticky peanut butter girls behind urine green bathroom stalls belt angel songs, funneling through the heating ducts, conjubilant with song, a feast to shout among the ailing throng. It is a blessed country, sweet in death, a home to the elect. Our song of triumph resounds round floors, neath beds, and through IVs, and in comas and last breaths. It is Jerusalem upon the plains, a throne of golden wheat and milk and honeyed earth, the conquerors faithfully brought to rest upon the Armo plains, blood of earth and heaven pumping through our veins. We are little girls clothed in robes of white. The next poem, North Central Kansas is known for its post-rock limestone, and there were no trees, so they quarried the stone for fences and barns and houses and sidewalks. And there was a quarry on our farm, and I'm sure that my grandpa Bentrup helped quarry that stone. This one is dedicated to my grandpa Bentrup. Building with post-rock limestone. The compression of the Kansas seas laid layers of dead, extinct creatures inches below, softly molded to layers of earth. The overburden peeled back like so much dead skin, a seam of solidified bone. Just as the seam was laid, so the Father laid the fence posts. The man laboring in veins with auger, plug, and feather, dragging posts on wishbone sleds, tipping, tamping, stringing with wire. He built his family upon the plains, the weight of the rock bending his back in the years of children and grandchildren. We too could excavate the limestone rock with drill, plug, and feather, like our father. We who are children of the plains, heavy memories solidifying when exposed to air. We tip and tamp our lives, layering the bones in seams of years. The fence seems derelict upon the prairie, rubble overgrown in dead tumble pigweed. The rock, the foundation, rests beneath the earth, while we who remain honor his name and labor not in vain. So, my grandma Meier on my dad's side told me this story, and I always wondered if it was true. And about 2 years ago, I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to research this and see if it could happen. And sure enough, from what I found out, it's very, very likely that the story is true. So it is called Dedicated to the Southeast Section 34, Township 43 North, Range 19 West, inspired by William Carlos Williams. Of this plot of ground facing Haw Creek, the steadfast stones in the family cemetery hum of the vestiges lived on the prairie. Of Valeria Ernestine Wacker, who told her granddaughter a story about bushwhackers and raids on a farm in Missouri. A dour woman, a preacher's daughter, never smiling, speaking with German in her voice. The story told by her grandmother to her. Of Wilhelmine Caroline Tagmeyer, who married in 1863 in Cole Camp, Missouri, and lived on a farm in Morgan County, Missouri, cattywampus from Little Dixie next door to Benton County. Of ruffians on horses, searching for whatever, wearing their fancy embroidered shirts, with long hair blowing, on fast rides and dismounts as they burned the barns, raided the smokehouses, upending tables, slashing furniture with their cavalry swords, storming a bedroom to flip the mattress for money or gold, not seeing the baby asleep on the patchwork quilt of greens, blues, browns, and rusty reds. Of the heart of a mother fearing the silence, of saving the baby from a feather mattress soft in its suffocation, or to wait to watch the plunging sword rip the feathers into a drift of bloody plumes. The sound of stomping boots, trailing flour and coffee, killing the cattle for supper. It was the Civil War, border ruffians, raids, and skirmishes on the Fisher family farm in the southwest quarter of the southeast section 34, township 43 north, range 19 west. I wonder now why she told this granddaughter this story. What I do know now, if you don't want to remember your grandmother's stories, yours don't count. So I went back to my 40th college reunion. Got to see my friend Cindy, who's out there. And I really had not been back in 40 years. I have mixed feelings about reunions. They stir up a lot of emotions and things, and hey, I write about it. This is a Haben minus prose. It's a Japanese style. Gazing out at the Walnut Valley, remembering the 77 steps at Southwestern College, inspired by Richard Staw. I contemplate the steps sitting on the wall by Christie Hall, the maple trees scarlet and the geraniums in baskets, builder purple. A spider repels from tree to sidewalk crack, a deep canyon to trek, scurrying to the limestone wall. 40 years ago, I roamed this college hill, never went back till now. I left alone, I remain alone, a web between sunsets in lilac bushes. So I'm going to end with fragility. This is the way back on Interstate 70 after going through and seeing all of these places from my past. In the rusty patches of ripened sorghum along Highway 18, west of Sylvan Grove, I can see the trail back home under the forever sky. I stand solid like the limestone post rock at the corners of the field, watching the black Angus on the hills. At my feet, the pasture gourds nestle against the rubble from the road cut. The barbed wire snags and draws blood from my fragile skin of age. It's really not about the fragility, it's about the strength of the moment. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Barbara. I loved how you paint a picture of Kansas. My only association with Kansas, growing up in Missouri on the St. Louis side, in the suburbs, not really a farm girl, but I remember we would drive through Kansas to go to Denver on Highway 70, that long, long, straight, straight road. and and you've really brought so much life to it that I didn't really experience as a teenager that was bored to tears. And I really have such an appreciation for this book because of that, because you've opened Kansas up to me. And I love that. So thank you for sharing your stories.
Thank
And
you.
I love the thing about listening to your grandparents' stories and how we have to listen to them if we want anyone to listen to ours later on. So that's really fun. So thank you again for sharing.